Hey, so if this is your first time here, or if last week was your first time here, just want to introduce myself. My name is Taylor, and when I get to know your name, I'll probably say your name, and then I'll say what up. So everyone, what up? Okay, I was hoping the people that knew me knew what I was trying to get at. So, hey, I'm super excited for tournament series. I'm super excited for week 2. I'm super excited to tell you Spirit winner and who is in first place leading into week 3 next week. But first off, I want to tell you a story that if you come all the time, you have probably heard this story. And I know that I've told this story at one of the Whitewaters this year. I can't remember exactly which one. So if you have heard it, don't spoil it for the people that have not heard it. But if you haven't, just lean in. I remember when I was in middle school, I would hang out with my friend Conrad all the time, okay? And the cool thing about Conrad was that his dad used to be the best BMXer in the entire world. His name is Perry Kramer, and he actually has his own bike that is named after him. It's called the PK Ripper, and I have a picture I want to show you of Perry's right there in the center. That's him in his 20s. Now he's in his 60s. That bike on the left is his bike that right now is going for, I looked it up, a little over $5,000. So I don't know if that's a lot or not, but that's a lot for me to buy a bike because I don't bike. On that side is when he partnered with Vans and they came up with his own PK Ripper bike. So it was pretty cool that I was really, really, really good friends with Perry's son. And because Perry was super into biking, of course his son Conrad was super into biking. So before we got our license, we would bike all the time. Now, here's the thing. Conrad was really good at biking because his dad was really good. Me, on the other hand, I was not good at all. I really did not like going out and biking, but I liked hanging out with him, so I would just ride around with him. I remember one time in particular, we were mountain biking. We both had mountain bikes, and we went on these trails that are, maybe some of you have been there before. Do you know where those red towers are that blink at the top that are like air traffic control, making sure airplanes don't hit them? Yeah, so it's like 5 minutes away from here, and we used to go back there and we would ride our bikes. And there were a lot of jumps and there were a bunch of different hills to go down and go up, which really was not fun. I remember one time in particular when we were riding our bikes there, we both came to this point where we had to go down this hill that, to me, it was a really steep hill. Okay, let's say it was 20 feet down. I don't know if that's steep or not, but for me, it was. And the problem was, right when it got to the end, you had to make sure you took a left or you had to make sure you took a right, because if you didn't, you'd go right into the bushes. Let's pretend you guys are all bushes. This is the hill. I got to make a right. I got to make a left. We get to that point, and Conrad goes down the hill super easy, and he makes a left, and he successfully gets down, and then he looks at me, and he's like, all right, Taylor, it's your turn. And I remember being up there thinking, I don't want to go down this, because I was terrified that I was going to fly right into the bushes and get stabbed by a branch or something. So I had to muster up the courage, and finally he convinced me to go down this hill. And I remember when I was halfway down the hill, I applied the wrong brake. So if you know anything about riding bikes, you know that you want to apply the back brake. But that is not what I did. I applied the front brake. So when I was halfway down this hill, my bike started to tilt up like this. And now I have this fear that I am going to start tumbling down. However, I didn't get so far up. I'm I can just fall to the side. Yes, it's gonna hurt, but at least I'm not gonna do all these cartwheels down on my bike. The problem was I was tilting to the left already, and on the left there was a cactus that was right there. And I wasn't too far to the left yet that I had a decision to make. Was I going to fall and collide into the cactus, or was I going to fall forward and collide into the ground and keep going forward? And I made the decision to collide with the cactus, which was not fun. Now, I don't want to lie to you and exaggerate the story. I did not fall into the middle of the cactus, but I still fell on the outside that I had probably 20 to 30 different needles that were sticking out of me. I remember I pulled one out of my knee that was this long. It was not fun. They got to take my pants off there, and luckily no one else was around except Conrad, because the needles were everywhere. I don't know why I shared that part of the story. Sorry, that just kind of came out. But it was not fun that day, and I really don't remember going down any other hill afterward on a mountain bike. I collided with the cactus, or I could have collided going forward, But both were bad decisions. Why? Because colliding with something is never really a good thing. At least we think. When we think of this word collision, we might think of crashing into something. We might think of a car crash. And maybe some of you, unfortunately, have been in some type of car crash before, and you know that that is a very scary thing. In fact, my neighbor was just in a pretty bad car crash. She broke her sternum and a rib, and it was pretty scary. Luckily, she's okay. But when we think of collision, you might think of car crash. If you're a clumsy person, you might think of like colliding into another person and like hitting heads with them. I don't know if anyone in here is the clumsy one that has done that before. But collision, at least we think, is not a good thing. However, I want to let you know that sometimes colliding is actually a really good thing. Like, just think about it. Think about your best friend. I don't know who that is, but at some point, your lives had to collide before you could become friends. At some point in your life, your parents' lives had to collide so that they could have you. Collision is good because you are good, and it's good that you are here. This whole thing of tournament series is awesome because we have people from all these schools that are colliding with one another, and you have an incredible chance to make new friends. Do you see how collision can actually be a good thing? In fact, I want to propose that the best thing that will ever happen in your life, it's not when you get married. It's not if you ever make a lot of money. It's not if you have a family, if you have a bunch of cars. I think the best thing, I believe the best thing that will ever happen in your life is a collision with Jesus Christ. And when I say colliding with Jesus Christ, when I say the name Jesus, I don't know what comes to mind. I know a lot of you come here to church and you are a Christian and you believe in Jesus and you're trying to follow Jesus. Others of you in this room, you might not be involved at church and you don't really have anything against God or Jesus. You're just like, yeah, I believe he was a guy, but I don't really follow him at all. Others of you in this room, you might just be here for fun or because of your friends, and we're so glad you're here. But maybe your thought about Jesus is that he was fake, that he tries to steal all the fun away in our life. I don't know your thought about Jesus, but let me tell you, I believe that Jesus is God. That's what the Bible claims, that Jesus is God. And what I love about the Bible is that whenever I open it up, I see so many stories about Jesus and his interactions, or let me say, his collisions with other people. And in the brief few moments that I have with you, I want to share one of those stories from the Bible where Jesus collided with someone else. And a lot of you in this room are going to believe what I say tonight. Some of you in this room aren't going to believe it at all. I just hope wherever you are just respectful and you listen in. And if at the end of this you decide, hey, I don't really believe that, then that's totally okay. All I can ask is that you give me the next few moments as I talk about this story. I'm going to be telling you about Jesus' interaction with a guy named Matthew. Now, Matthew had a job, and he was a tax collector. And let me tell you, tax collectors were people that were outcast from society. They were ostracized from their families for a couple of different reasons. First off, tax collectors, a lot of them were Jewish people, and because they were Jews, they were working with the Roman government, so they basically were betraying their people. They were traitors to the other Jews in the land. Now, on top of that, the tax collectors did something that was very immoral. What they would do is they would go and they would collect taxes from someone. However, they could upcharge. They could charge whatever they wanted, and they could keep the extra. They would give the taxes to the Roman government, and then they would have to keep the rest. This was very immoral, what they did. This was a wrong thing that they did. I would say that this was a sinful thing that they did. And when I talk about the word sin tonight, it's any act that is against God. Jesus wants us to live a certain way, and whenever we do things against that, it's called sin. So as we read about Matthew tonight, we're reading about a sinner and Jesus' interaction with him. So there's some verses we're going to throw up on the screen, but I just want to read the short story to you before we go tonight. But it says this in Matthew chapter 9, starting in verse 9. It says, as Jesus went on from there, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the tax collector's booth. "Follow me," Jesus told him, and Matthew got up and followed him. Now, the first thing that I want to point out in the story is that we see Jesus colliding with Matthew. We don't see Matthew colliding with Jesus, but we see Jesus, the one, approaching Matthew at the tax collector's booth. Now, being a tax collector was a sinful thing. So if he's at the booth, he's in the middle of committing sin. But even though he was committing a sin, it did not mean that Jesus was not going to interact with him. It did not mean that Jesus was not going to collide with him. However, he approached him and he said, "Follow me." And then the story continues. It says, while Jesus, "Follow me," he told him, and Matthew got up and followed him. I already read that part. So what I love is that Matthew got up from the tax collector's booth and he followed Jesus. A sinner, someone that you might not expect to follow Jesus, was the one that got up and followed him. And the question is, why was he so willing to get up and go follow Jesus? Well, I think that Matthew was trying to live his life the way he wanted to. He was trying to get rich by being a tax collector. He had these dreams, but he realized that his dreams weren't fulfilling. They didn't satisfy him. He wanted something more. And he realized this life that he'd been living, the goals that he had weren't doing it for him. And let me tell you, I think a lot of us are going to get to that place in life where you have a goal, you have something that you're trying to achieve, and you live your life, you're going to realize, why am I still not happy? Why am I unsatisfied? Why do I feel like there's something more? So Matthew was willing to get up and follow Jesus. Now it continues and it says, while Jesus was having dinner at Matthew's house, many tax collectors and other sinners came and ate with him and his disciples. So Matthew now is at this party with Jesus. It's at his house. He threw the party. And I believe that he threw the party because he wanted all of his other friends to experience Jesus. And I think that's why so many of you were invited here to Tournament Series, because you have friends in your life that want you to experience Jesus. And I love wherever Jesus is, there's a party. Because Jesus doesn't take away the fun that we think. He actually brings fun to our life. He brings excitement. He brings happiness. He brings joy because he is the one that created it. So they're there, they're having a party. And the people that are partying with Jesus are the ones that you would not expect to be with him. Because you might expect those that, are like goody two-shoes, or those that are perfect people, or those that are weird to be hanging out with Jesus. But we see Jesus hanging out with the sinners. We see Jesus hanging out with those that did bad things. And I believe that this is a snapshot of what heaven is going to be like. When we think of heaven, we might think of like rainbows, and we might think of clouds and like angel babies flying around with their wings. I don't know if that's what you think, but I've thought that at times. But I think that this is really what heaven is. A bunch of bad people that did a lot of bad stuff, but are there because of Jesus. Now, there's always party poopers at every single party, right? You might think of who those people are in your life. They appear here in the story. It continues and it says, when the Pharisees saw this, they asked his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" Now, the Pharisees were the religious leaders. They were the ones that you would expect to be hanging out with Jesus, but they are complaining that Jesus is hanging out with the sinners. And they're like, what the heck is this about? You see, they thought that they were better than the sinners. They looked down upon those that did bad things. And because of that reason, Jesus did not want to associate with them. Because Jesus doesn't like pride. He doesn't like when people look down on others. And that's what these religious people did. So he said, I'm hanging out with the sinners over here. It says, on hearing the complaining, Jesus said, it is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. For I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners. Jesus says that he is here for the sinners. And the crazy thing about the whole story is that the Pharisees were sinners also, right? Because no one is perfect. Think of the person that you think is the most perfect in your life. They aren't. They mess up. Religious people mess up. But the Pharisees did not recognize their own brokenness. So they judged the sinners. And Jesus didn't want to have anything to do with them because Jesus wants to deal with those that realize that they are broken. You see, my hope for all of us here, as you come to Tournament Series, I hope that you have a lot of fun. I hope that you make a lot of friends. I hope that you want to come back. But I hope that we identify ourselves in this story with the sinners, with Matthew, with the ones that know we are broken, that know that the things we've done in life are not satisfying, and we realize there's something more, and we're wondering what is going to heal us of this disease called sin. There's a verse, you can throw it up on the screen, I'm almost done, but it says this in Romans chapter 3, for everyone has sinned. We all fall short of God's glorious standard. You see, this is a truth for all of us. Everyone in this room is broken. And you either are going to recognize that, or you are going to be like the Pharisees in the story that don't. And let me tell you, Jesus doesn't want to associate with you because he wants to associate with the people that realize there's something more. I can't heal on my own. The cool thing is that Jesus is a true doctor, the real doctor that is always available, that has a complete cure for our problem. So I hope that we could be people that constantly come back here to Tournament Series, ready for the fun, but want to lean into the conversation that we are having about Jesus, realizing that we are all broken people, and Jesus wants to collide with you. When Jesus collides with you, nothing is ever the same again. Matthew's life is never going to be the same again. And if you are in this room feeling unsatisfied, feeling broken, feeling ashamed, feeling guilty because of things you've done, let me tell you, Jesus is there whispering to you, wanting to collide with you, saying, I want to be a part of your life. I want to change the things that you know that need to be changed. And let me guarantee your life will never be the same again. So I want to pray for us right now. Think about these words that I shared tonight. Kirk's going to come back up and we're going to reveal some of the winners. So I don't know if you pray. If you do, pray with me. If not, then maybe just kind of sit there quietly. But God, I want to thank you for Tuesday nights. I want to thank you for this thing called Tournament Series and the incredible blessing of this church to bless those to go to Six Flags for free. I pray, Lord, for every single person in this room. How cool is it that you know all of their names, you know all of their passions, you know all of their dreams, you know all of the things they've done, all the good things they've done, all the bad things that they've done, but you still want to collide with all of them. I pray, God, that through Tournament Series, we meet you. You're reaching out, you're pursuing, you want to collide with us. Let us respond back to you. Let us collide with you. And if we have any questions, let us ask you. Let us ask the people around us. It's in your name we pray. Amen.